Welcome back, Hawks fans, to your Atlanta Hawks fan show. It's your boy Bryce Lewis back again. It's been a while, but I am back with another show talking about our beloved Hawks. And I have another special guest with us today, Keith Smith, from Spotrac and the front office show, NBA Insider, on the show to talk about the Hawks. Welcome into the show, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's great having you on, talking about the Hawks and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into it. So we're going to go ahead and just start with the trade deadline. Obviously, the Hawks about a couple of weeks ago were a big discussion about a team who could be active around that time. John Collins is a player that we've heard is the main piece. If there was a major move to be made by this team, he would be the guy to be traded in said trade. The Hawks since then have played better, and now maybe plans have changed. Maybe not. We'll see. I just want to ask you, what do you think currently on the situation with the Hawks from a trade perspective? Do you expect them to still maybe be active? Is John still actively being shopped? Or if the Hawks continue to play this way, even going close to the trade deadline, they'll probably not do that much or have a minor move at the deadline.
Yeah, I think Atlanta is one of those teams that could go in any number of directions. As you said, they've been playing really well. They had that 7-game streak snapped last night, but that was in a game where they didn't have Trae Young. But I think the sense I've gotten from folks who have been talking with Atlanta is they are looking, they don't want to damage their chances this year too much, but they're looking to reset their cap sheet a little bit. This is a team that is 1 year away from being wildly expensive because then you have Trae Young's extension kicking in. If everything goes as we expect, that's going to be a $37 million first year salary. And that's a massive jump from his rookie contract where he is right now. So that's going to be a big jump. Then you have Collins at 20 plus million. You've got Capella at 20 million. You've got Danilo Gallinari, if you keep him, at 20 plus million. Bogdanovich right on the borderline of 20 million. And then a year from now, you're going to have a new deal kicking in for DeAndre Hunter. That was part of what motivated the Cam Reddish trade was, all right, let's clean up this a little bit. Let's remove one player that we won't have to sign. But yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see where Atlanta goes because they're in such a spot where they were really, really good last year. And then this year it slipped a little bit. So you have to really balance those priorities of, what's more real? Was last year more real, or is this year more real? And do we want to add to this team? Do we want to, there's no chance that they're going to blow it up and rebuild. I mean, you don't do that when you have Trae Young, right? That would be absolutely stupid. So what you're looking at now is how do we reset a little bit around Trae Young and maybe balance out our cap sheet just a little bit better going forward.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know, obviously, even with the cap jumping up in a few years, that still isn't something that's going to happen right before the big cap jump that you mentioned next year. So I think the Hawks are just, like I said, trying to stay ahead of the cap situation and not, put themselves too much in this, the luxury tax. So with that being said, we focused on John. Is there any other player that you're hearing that could be circulating, that could be traded? We've heard Bogey. We've heard maybe Gallo. Some people even think with the emergence of Onyeka Okongwu, is Clint maybe going to start being mentioned? Are you hearing anything like that?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything around Clint Capella. Like, I think he's somebody that they're going to stick with. They just gave him that contract extension, so I don't think he's in the mix. But Collins, for sure. We know that's been out there for a little bit now. But Danilo Gallinari definitely is a guy who teams have looked at. We heard Kevin Huerter mentioned a little bit. I think that's one where that would be a if we have to versus we're actively looking to. And then Bogdanovich, that's another guy at $18 million for this season and for next season. That's a guy that a lot of teams are looking at and saying that's a pretty fair value contract for what he gives you. So that may be something where, hey, if Atlanta really wants to say, all right, Kevin Huerter's our guy, we're going to move forward with really him and Hunter as our wings of the future, well, we'll go. But I don't think there is necessarily the huge pressure to make a deal that there might have been even a couple of weeks ago. I think the Reddish trade, I hesitate to say freed things up, but I think it kind of, all right, we made that deal. We started to play better. Now we can be a little bit more choosy about how we move forward.
Yeah. And speaking on that, the team has played better since the Cam Reddish trade. And then obviously I think of Onyeka Okongwu getting back, playing better, DeAndre Hunter being healthy, I think is also contributing. The Hawks have been, not good at all defensively this year. And those are probably one of the two best defensive players, if not the two best. So I like to ask you about this team since they've been playing better. What have you seen from this team that you think is contributing to the better play? And because people are obviously in the Atlanta Hawks, fan base are thinking this is reminding them of last year's team, the second half of last year, during the 7-game winning streak, the way they're playing better defense, but still scoring because they have the number 1 offense efficiency rating, I believe, in the league. So what are you seeing when you've seen this team play these last 7 games, excluding last night because, Trae Young did not play?
Yeah, you hit it. It's the defense. They're finally starting to get some stops on a semi-regular basis. Now, they're not a good defensive team. I don't think we're going to go quite that far. But what they're not is a horrible defensive team. And that is a difference, and that's a meaningful one. I think sometimes we think teams have to be really good at something. When your offense is that good, you just need to not give points back quite as quickly as you score them. And that's where they were for so much of the season. It was just an absolute mess. And let's face it, as gifted as Trae Young is as an offensive player, he's never going to be a really good defender. I mean, he'll try, he'll give you effort. I think that's improved over the course of the year, but he's just too small. He's going to get pushed around some. He's going to get knocked around. Teams are going to take advantage of him. But when you have Hunter in there, it really changes, because what that gives you some switchability, a guy who can help and double, a guy who can recover back to his man. Herter's a better defensive player than anybody ever gives him credit for. And he was really kind of on an island as their best defensive wing for roughly this entire first half of the season, as Hunter missed so much time. And that's not really, a place where you want to be, where you have just kind of one defensive wing. Their bigs are good. Capella and Okongwu, now that Okongwu is back, is good. And that also makes a difference too, because now what you're getting is 48 quality minutes of center play. You're not downgrading for the 20 minutes or so that Capella was off the floor, and just kind of getting by with whether it be Collins at the 5 or Gallo at the 5, which they did some early in the season, or then Gorgie Jang, who's just he's fine if he's your third center, but that's it's just fine as your third guy. When he was pressed into being more than that was tough. So I think that health has really done them wonders. And then, as you mentioned, the offense is just terrific. It's gonna be, as long as you have Trae Young and you have some other guys who can finish passes from him or finish jump shots off his passes, you're gonna put together a really good offense, and that's what they've done.
Yeah, and I think you even hit it on the head. Like I said, quality minutes at center, never downgrade. I think that's obviously, when you go to the bench unit, you feel like maybe there's spots where you downgrade, and that may hurt us. Obviously, the big thing for the Hawks has been their backup point position. Even though Delon and Lou have played better as of late, I know a lot of Hawks fans are still iffy about the position. I think last night's game, I think that made them kind of be like, oh, we still need another backup point, because if we're playing this way without Trae, even though it wasn't, they had one back quarter that really cost them the game. But it just depends. But one player I want to ask you about before I let you go is John Collins. I want to go back to him. Obviously, John Collins is at least within Atlanta, is a lot of controversy sometimes with him. Some people are wondering, was he worth the contract that he got? Is he good enough to be your second option? Things like that. There was a point I saw earlier today that a lot of teams' second options are getting paid 30, north of 30. John's only getting paid 25. It's not a bad deal at all if you realistically think about it. Well, I just want to get your thoughts on John Collins as a player.
Yeah, I struggle to be rational about John Collins because he's one of my favorite players in the league. I'm not a big draft guy. When I tend to watch college basketball, it tends to be the ACC because I'm a Boston College guy, which is just watching them get their heads beat in every game because they stink. But I fell in love with John Collins at Wake Forest. I was like, this guy's going to be great in the NBA because he can finish around the rim. I knew he was going to be a really good rebounder in the league. That's the one skill we know translates for sure from college to the NBA is rebounding ability. And then you could see he had about a 18 foot jump shot in college that it looked pure. The form looked good. I thought he would extend that out to the 3-point line when he got into the league. And that's what he's done. I think what gets missed with John Collins is people get stuck in the old school counting stats of he doesn't even average 20 points. He doesn't get 10 rebounds. What is this? Well, you put John Collins on a team where he gets more shots, 20 points is easy. That's an easy given. The 10 rebounds will take Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu and a couple guards who like to get in there like Bogdanovich and Herter and, swipe a couple rebounds. Hunter's a pretty good rebounder for a guy who plays a lot at the 3. If you put him on a team where you need him to get 10, 12 rebounds a night, he's going to get you 10, 12 rebounds a night. He just is kind of a share of the wealth guy. So I love John Collins. I think his contract is a great value. I think he's a really good fit with Trae Young because you can do a lot of things in that pick and roll. Part of what makes their offense so tough is if you defend Collins to roll, that frees up Trae Young to either drive or come off and shoot. If you defend Collins to pop, you can then even easier free up Trae Young. If you stick with Trae Young, well, you're going to get either one of those, right? Collins is going to roll. You bring the helper, then he'll just step back and he'll pop. And that is one of the toughest two-man combos for any team to guard. And a lot of that is Trae Young, obviously, but a big chunk of it goes to just how good and how versatile of an offensive player John Collins is. And I think that gets missed if you just look at his raw stats, because it may not jump out as you quite as much, because you got to watch the games. You got to look a little bit deeper and, put his role into play with those as well.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you on that. I think one thing watching the Hawks and watching John is just he makes an impact that's bigger than the stats. And he does a lot of things for the team. Last year, he was trying to figure out what is his role with all this new talent. What is he supposed to do? Because he was the second option before. He averaged 20 and 10 as the legitimate second option. And then we got more talent. His role changed. And now people are like, well, is he worth it still? Like, well, if your role changes and you're not asked to do that, that can make some things different. It kind of reminds me of Chris Bosh in Miami a little bit because they were used to the 24 and 12. And then he averages like 16, 17. They were like, is Chris Bosh that good? I was like, well, you have to wait LeBron James. I mean, what do you want him to do,
Yeah.
So, and in the half season that we saw him after LeBron left, he went back to averaging 20 points again. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where what you said, if he was on another team with more opportunity, he probably would have those stats. But on this team, he's not asked to. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just like to say, Keith, appreciate you coming on to the show. Love having you on, talking some Hawks. Can you remind everybody where to find you on your social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. That's the only place I'm active, but I'm really active on there. You can find me there at KeithSmithNBA. Nice and simple. You can find me there on Twitter. You can find also over at YouTube, NBA Front Office Show. Me and my pal Trevor Lane record on a near daily basis. Where we get a lot of stuff going up around the trade deadline right now. That we'll be coming out with here over the next week and a half as we lead up to the trade deadline. But check out NBA Front Office Show.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Keith, and Hawks fans. That was your Atlanta Hawks fan show.
To host a fan show or appear as a fan on a fan show, create a profile in Fan Media Network. Then look for the news page in our website and fan show resources page. Help yourself. We give show hosts a show graphic in team colors, a simple short show format, tips on pre- and post-production, ideas to get fans and guests on your show, Apple News distribution and show sponsorship sales and services to help featured show hosts earn money. Show hosts use our iPhone app to publish their shows. Our website supports Android users.